Welcome to this video where I will show you how to create the gear pump assembly in FreeCAD. In previous video tutorial we have created the gear of our assembly, so in this video tutorial we will create the case. It is second part of this model. So let's create the copy of our first gear, and we have to make the transformation for our second gear in Y direction. For this we have to find the center position for our gear. You can calculate the distance between central of first gear and central between first and second gear using this formula and calculate it in Python console. You can find it in internet. So when we have found our Y vertical position of second gear, let's set the circular position. You can find it and calculate it using this formula. It is 180 delete to 15. Okay, and you will get this angle and set it in angle of position for second gear here, and let's create one else body and called it case. It's very convenient to create another bodies using the different models from the assembly. So let's create the 2D sketch with first part of case. Let's find this position. Let's choose these 2 points. How you remember, we have calculated this distance. It is 40 millimeters. And after that, let's set the radius for this part, this curve. Okay, it will be radius of gear, but also we have a gap between gear and case. Let's increase this radius in some dimension. Okay, and now we have the gap between case and gear. Okay, after that let's create one else sketch part and set this position, and let's create the thickness for wall of case here. But when we set it, we have the some falses in constraint. Let's delete one constraint and let's try again to set the thickness for case wall. Let's set 10 millimeters and close the sketch. After that, let's make the extrusion operation for our wall thickness. Set the 17 millimeters. It's some bigger than thickness of gears because we have to get the gap, radial gap between case and gears here. So now let's import the external edges, and you can use these external edges for creation the sketch parts here. Let's choose these 2 points and set this constraint. It will put our point on the sketch to point of model, and set this constraint for external part. Okay, let's go to here and create the rectangle, and for these two lines let's make the filled operation, and you can to choose both curves and set the dimension for both. It will apply equal constraint for two curves, two circles. Okay, let's set the length of this part, and let's set the symmetry constraint here, and let's set the length after that. But we cannot because we have the false with constraints. Let's delete this equal constraint and let's try again set the length of this part of sketch. Let's set 20 millimeters here, and you have to increase this radius. Okay, and let's set the vertical dimension for this part. Okay, we cannot to make it because we have some falses with constraints, but we don't. Okay, let's try again to choose this and this point here. Or the first, let's, of course you can just make the trim operation here. Okay, Ctrl Z because we cannot to make the trim operation for this line. It is some falses with sketcher in FreeCAD, because it is some falses with constraints here. Okay, let's choose these 2 points and make this constraint, put one point to another. Let's make the trim operation for this line, it works, and delete this line. Let's try to change the position, but we have one else constraint. Let's delete it here. Let's try to change this line. This it works, and let's set one else constraint for vertical line, but we have the false with some constraint. Let's try again. Again we have the false. Let's try to make some corrections to delete the constraints here, and now it works. It is not convenient in FreeCAD to work with constraints, automatic constraints, of course. Okay, let's set the circle and set the radius for this circle and central position for this circle. So how can you you have to check the constraints in FreeCAD for your steps, because automatically constraints often cannot work correctly. Okay, now we have to make the symmetry operation. It is tool in Sketch, but first we have to make the symmetry line. We will change the mode of the sketch working. We have to create the blue lines here. It will be this half of your gear pump. Let's set the position of this symmetry line. We will be using the symmetry line for creation the symmetry of your upside part of gear pump case. Let's choose these 2 points here and make this operation. Okay, after that let's choose your lines, and the last one will be symmetry line, and make the symmetry, and you will get these lines in another side. Let's make the trim operation for this part, and let's close our sketch and try to make the extrusion for the sketch. Okay, how can you see we have some trouble because we cannot to create the extrusion, but let's try again. Yes, we cannot to make it. Maybe changing the dimension here. Okay, no, it doesn't work. Let's close it. Because I think because we have some troubles with constraints here, so let's try to change this point, for example, and we find this false because we doesn't have the right position for your points. You have to connect these points because you have to have the closed sketch for creation the extrusion operation, for example. So let's try again to create the extrusion for the sketch. Choose a spot, and yes, it works. Click OK, and you will get bottom part of case here. Now we have some part of case here and gears. Second part, we have to create the hole for shaft. Let's change the mode of sketch. You will get white lines in sketch toolbar, and let's set the diameter. It will be 14 millimeters here. Let's make the pocket operation for this sketch, and you will get the hole for your shaft. Okay. After that, let's choose this line on the surface and create the sketch on the surface. Click sketch, and we have to create the sum step for our gear here. Let's create 2 circles. Let's set the radius for this another circle. After that, let's close sketch. Okay, and for this looks let's change the mode of sketch, and let's create the symmetry line here because we have to create the symmetry for these 2 circles. Let's change the position of blue line here, and let's choose these lines these two circles. You can choose this two circle, and last line will be symmetry line. And let's make the symmetry for these lines, and after that you have to close the sketch, and let's make the extrude operation. The thickness of this steps will be 1 mm. It will be the step for shaft and for gear gap. Okay. After that, let's create one else sketch here, and let's change the mode of sketch to normal mode. Let's import the external edge, and let's make the sketch, but we have some faults with sketch. Let's try to delete it and create one else sketch. Choose this surface, create the sketch, import the external circle here, and let's set the circle here, and manually let's set the diameter, and we have the correct sketch here. Let's make the pocket here operation, and let's set the pocket length. It will be 2 mm. Okay, I think it's enough here. Let's make the refine true. It will delete some artifacts. Okay. After that, we have to continue the creation of this case. Let's change the position of gears, and let's make some translation in that direction to 1 mm for one and for first and second gear. And if you will change the transparency, you can see that we have the right position of our gears in case, because we have the step with thickness 1 mm, and we have made the translation for our gears to 1 mm also. Okay. So let's now let's make the inlet and outlet pipes to be the circle with some thickness. Let's set the position for this circle here. Set the position. It will be the half of thickness of gears here, and we have to set the right position here. Now it looks correct here. Let's change the horizontal position and set the diameter for this inlet hole. Let's close and make the pocket operation for both walls, for one side and another side. And now let's create the sketch on the surface, it will be the pipe part. It will be connector for pipe. Okay, let's set the diameter for this circle, and let's set the diameter for another circle. Let's close the sketch and make the extrusion operation. Okay, this length will be enough. And let's repeat the previous step for another side. Import the external circle, create the circle for internal part and external part of pipe. Close the sketch, create the extrusion operation for the sketch. Okay, and let's set the length of extrusion. Okay, now we have to create the holes for screws. Okay, it will be several holes here. We have to set the position for these holes and set the radiuses. Let's use the 4 millimeters diameter for hole and set the vertical center position. It will be 30, it's big length, and this position looks correct, and let's make another holes on the surface also. We can create the pocket for this hole and set the length of pocket operation. But let's set this position here. Okay, and you also can create the mirror if you will create this central line, and you will create also, you can create the plan and make the mirror for this hole. Choose, for example, the plane, it will be this plane, for example, and set the translation in some direction for y direction, but we have for this the local coordinate system, and you have to change in that direction. Change that direction and you will get this symmetry plane for our gear pump. And now let's choose our hole and symmetry plan and make the mirror operation for this, but we can set it here, plan, symmetry plan. Okay, click OK, and you will get these two different holes here. Let's hide button space, some parts, and let's create one else sketch on the surface thickness wall and set the position for this hole. 28 millimeters in horizontal position, and let's try to set the 4 millimeters diameter for this hole, and let's make the symmetry from here. Let's close the sketch, and for the sketch we can also create the pocket operation. Yes. But how can you see, we have some trouble because we set the position for holes for inlet and outlet pipes. Let's make the translation for this hole. Let's change the vertical position, set it, for example, 5 millimeters. And after that, let's create symmetry lines, change the mode to blue lines here. Let's create this symmetry line and set the position for this symmetry line. But we cannot to choose the lines, we have to choose the points for creation the dimension. For creation dimension, and set dimension will be 20 millimeters. Let's make symmetry and choose these two toggles and make symmetry for vertical axis. Choose these two toggles. Last line will be vertical axis, and you will get 4 holes. Let's close the sketch. You will get these holes here. And now we got the model of case for gear pump. And now let's make one else operation. It will be the small hole for seal. Let's set the thickness between these 2 points. It will be smaller step for seal. Let's close, and for this sketch let's make the pocket operation to 1 millimeters, and you will get this small step here for seal. Okay. Let's hide the gear 1 and second gear, and we have finished to creation this case. Let's choose our case here, but we will not to delete the another parts. Save this case to file. Click the save, and now we have finished. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Goodbye.